right. Hey, good morning. Happy holiday weekend. I always get Memorial Day and Labor Day confused when they get right up to the holiday, but we are getting ready to celebrate Labor Day, right? Did I get it right? Okay, tomorrow, like woohoo. But you're here, and I'm really excited that you're here because there are a lot of people, and this is gonna surprise you, who don't come to church on holiday weekends. And I'm not judging, I'm just saying, driving through my neighborhood a couple hours ago on the way to church, I saw a lot of my neighbors who were starting projects in the yard, it looked like, that maybe because they have tomorrow to finish and stuff, and lots of things going on. And so I want to tell you how happy I am that you are here, and I feel like that you're already winning right now because you've chosen to make some time out of your busy schedule, your holiday weekend, to settle and to be part of this. Now, if you're joining online, you're not losing. I'm not calling you a loser. There are a lot of important things to do. I'm just super grateful to be with you and here. Times when I'm gone make me miss being here even more. And last week I was gone. You probably didn't even notice. Pastor Brandon did a great job here. And I can go out of town and you guys are like, hey, who was that guy who preached last week? You don't even remember me. And I love that when that happens. But I'm really happy to be back. And we welcomed my grandson. His name is Roker Simmons Melick. Yep, that's him. That's my son Nathan sent that on Friday night. They were hanging out and he was just kind of bragging that he was holding the baby and not me. We were already back in town. So that was kind of just a picture he snapped and sent to me. But Roker is his name, R-O-E-C-K-E-R. It's a German name. I'm actually Richard Roker Melick III. That's a lot to say, I know. And my son Richard Roker Melick IV is Richard, 30-year-old, and that's his child. His son, our grandson. So he didn't really want to go with the fifth because that is kind of way over the top. He always thought the fourth was a little over the top, Richard. So he just kept the middle name Roker, and it's my grandfather's mother's maiden name. It's a German name, R-O-E-C-K-E-R. So I'm pretty pumped about him. Roker Simmons Melick. Simmons is Joy's maiden name, also Nathan's middle name. So a lot of significance to us in the family. Joy and I came back on Wednesday after spending 10 days with them and with Emery, my 3.5-year-old granddaughter. And Joy and my mission for the week was to keep Emery entertained and distracted so that Richard and Eden, well, first of all, Eden could have a baby. So we got to be there when big sister got to meet her brother. And that was all kinds of fun, watching her walk in and just all of a sudden realize that she has a brother and that he's gonna come home and never gonna leave. That was kind of fun too, kind of watching that realization. You don't get to take him back to the hospital when he cries, right? He's gonna be there forever. But we stayed up. Oh my goodness. Emery was just, ecstatic. She didn't have to go to school all week. It was just grandma and grandpa time, Bappo and grandma Joy. There was one night, she never went to bed before midnight, but one night she went to bed at 12:30. Joy and I were exhausted from the day. And this is literally, we were teaming up because when you only have one kid to take care of, it's 2-on-1. When you have two, it's a little different. And then 3, I don't know how you guys do it with 3 or more. But the cabin that we have there is just one big room basically with a separate bathroom. And so she has a little bed that pulls out of an ottoman and it's kind of at the foot of our bed, sort of off into the corner. So we're all sleeping in the same room. And so Emery was up and she would jump up and go, I need some cheese. I need to go to the bathroom. and so Joy and I are taking turns getting up and, serving her because she's the princess and we spoil her. And finally I'm nodding off, right? And so I'm nodding off and Joy's staying awake and Emery's still doing her thing. And then Joy starts nodding off. So she elbowed me and goes, you've got to wake up because I've got to go to sleep. And so then Joy would nod off and I would stay awake. And so finally at 12:30, she went to bed. We had a great time with her, but good to be back. But I was thinking about you guys all week and I got to walk or hike when I go down there. It's the Ozark Mountains. There's some great hiking trails. And so I try to create a little margin in my life, which we'll be talking about later. And I spend some time during the day hiking, praying, thinking about you guys, thinking about what's coming up, thinking about my own life and family. And I was able to do that most of the days that I was there. And as I was thinking about you, and as I was thinking about me and my life, Joy in my life together, my kids and what I want and hope for them, this is a message that I believe that God was prompting me to share with you. And this is a message where if you lean in, it will get into your business. You will feel your toes being stepped on. And I'll just tell you right off the bat, you're going to have a tendency to want to lean out or to look away at some point. This will bring out the defensiveness in you. It will bring out a little bit of regret in you. And if you're honest, you're going to have to choose whether you want to look in the mirror or whether you want to point at somebody else. And that'll be between you and the Lord. But I'm taking you through the same journey that I've taken myself on over the last week, and can't wait to share it with you today. So we're picking up the story today in the Old Testament, and it's actually backing up a little bit from where we've been. We're going back to Exodus. Now, this is the very last time we will be spending time specifically in the Old Testament, but it's kind of bridging the gap between the stories of the judges, the stories of the prophets, the things we've talked about over the last 4 months, and then where we're heading, which is a new series on Dirty Church, on how it is that you and I can be at peace with God, help others be at peace with God, and find our purpose in life. And we're starting that series next week. And so this is kind of a gap bridger, a connecting service, where we're going to be talking about something that may not seem relevant to you, but I promise it is: idolatry. Now, when I say idolatry, immediately it sounds like something Old Testament. It sounds like something that doesn't relate to you, but that related to people who lived hundreds or thousands of years ago. And when I said or thousands, hundreds or thousands of years ago, idolatry, false gods. And in some ways, it's very accurate. That's something people struggled with many, many, many years ago. But I believe it's something we still struggle with today. An idol is anything that takes God's rightful place in your life. An idol. You and I, most of us will say, or would say, that we're followers of Christ, and so God is the most important thing or person in my life. Jesus is number one. Many of us say that that's true, but we don't live like that's true, because what we think about, what we spend our time doing, and how we spend our money doesn't come close to reflecting that as being a reality in our life. So we say one thing, but live a different way, and we wonder why there's tension inside of us, why there's friction in our closest relationships, and why other people who hear we're Christians but watch the way we live, why they're confused. And it's really simple. We're hypocrites. We say one thing and do another. We profess one thing and live another. And it's a problem that people have had since Adam and Eve sinned in the garden and God cast them out and began his redemptive plan or purpose through Jesus. And it's something we're going to talk about today. So who or what is the most important thing in your life right now? And let's dive in and let's make sure your answer to that question stacks up with God's answer in Scripture. We're going to go to the 10 Commandments. Maybe you're familiar with them. Now, the 10 Commandments were restated in the New Testament by Jesus and summarized in a way that was super clear. Jesus says that you are supposed to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength, and you're to love your neighbor as yourself. All of the 10 Commandments were summed up in that command, and the 10 Commandments were given to the children of Israel at a specific time and for a purpose. The purpose was that God wanted to get the effects of Egypt out and away from his people because the culture was corrupting them. And so about 3 months after the children of Israel left Egypt, God led them to the base of Mount Sinai and had an encounter with Moses where God shared with Moses some commands that would help separate his people from the corruption of the culture that they had endured, experienced, and began to adopt as they were captive in Egypt. And you and I fight that culture battle, that culture war all the time. The world has a plan for you, and it's not necessarily God's plan. Your neighbors and friends have a plan for you, and it's not necessarily God's plan. Sometimes your spouse has a plan for you, and it's not always God's plan. Sometimes your family or your kids have plans for you, and it's not always God's plan. We live in a culture that the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 12 has a current, and that it pulls or draws us away from being people of God with right motives, a right heart, at peace with God and at peace with others, free in who we are and who we're becoming. That it pulls us away and propels us toward a stranger who we wouldn't even recognize. That the world around us leads us out into the wilderness and leaves us for dead. And the children of Israel were facing that. They'd left Egypt, but Egypt hadn't left them. And so God wanted to help purify the heart, single-minded. Who do you love? Who is number one in your life? All of them would have said, well, you are God, but the second they had a distraction, a detour, an unexpected event, the second they were bored, confused, or scared, they turned their hearts, they turned their minds to any other ideology or little g God, any idol that was in front of them. So the 10 Commandments came as guidelines to turn the heart back to God. And the very first commandment we find in Exodus chapter 20, and it's a simple one, but it's really a hard one. I want to read it to you. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's a pretty simple one, isn't it? That's like the number one commandment. Now, why would he say that? Well, he explains it, God does, in the second commandment. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Now, I have this in King James, so there's a lot of these and thous and stuff in here, because for those who've grown up in church, if you are at least my age or somewhere around there, you probably learned the 10 Commandments. You probably can't recite them still. A lot of people get really angry about the 10 Commandments, and we should still live by them, and they should be here and there, but we don't really know them, even if we were to try to recite them. But the King James Version is the version most of us learned them from. So the language was familiar to me. I looked them up in the NIV. I didn't even recognize them, even though the content was the same. It just wasn't structured quite the same way. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Well, what's a graven image? They had two kinds of images back in this particular day that they would worship. And so they would take an ideology, a false god, something they wanted to worship, and they would make some kind of a likeness. And so a graven image would have been a carved likeness that they would have carved like an Asherah pole out of wood or something that they could manipulate with their hands. Judges 8 tells us that they also had molten images. Molten images were also forbidden, even though they weren't included in the 10 Commandments in this particular one. And those were images that were cast, like they would hollow out a rock or a piece of wood to form the shape of a horse or something, and they would take like gold and pour it into the cast, like they would even do today, close it up, and then it would come out and they would worship it. Ta-da! And it wasn't just the inanimate object that they were worshiping, it was what it represented. And so God had enough of it. Now for you and me, I don't want you to disconnect right now thinking that you don't have any golden calves in your car or any Asherah poles in your home, but I would suggest that you have plenty in your life. Because a false god or an idol is anything that rightfully takes God's place, and God is a jealous God, and he says, you're not to have anybody else before me. Now you say, what do you mean he's a jealous God? Well, let me explain it to you. Thou shalt not make any more or any of the graven images or any likeness or anything that is in heaven above or that is on the earth beneath or that is even in the water below. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord, thy God, am a jealous God. Is that hard for you to listen to? Do you view God as a jealous God? Does that make you uncomfortable? It makes me a little uncomfortable, because if you know your Bible, you know that in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul talks about jealousy as being a sin. You're like, well, how can God be sinful? Well, jealousy can be a sin, and in the Hebrew, there are two words that almost are identical. One has an extra in the transliteration, which kind of delineates it from the other one. One of them is sinful. It's a hyper-possessiveness over something, an attachment to someone or something. I'm super jealous. When I met Joy back in college, super jealous. It was a character flaw. I had to work through it. She was a little sis for a fraternity, and I wanted to fight every single guy in that fraternity on sight. I even tried to. I was so jealous. They weren't even up to anything. I just didn't want them any part of Joy's life, and I had to work through that and realize not only can I trust her, but I love her, and I got to chill a little bit. I mean, jealousy could have ruined our relationship, could have ruined our marriage. But that's not the kind of jealousy that God's talking about when he says he is a jealous God. The jealousy God's talking about is a jealousy that doesn't just covet or desire to control, a desire to want, a desire to possess. The jealousy that God expresses is the jealousy of relationship, where he's not jealous of us. He's jealous for us. that he wants us to know him so that the effects of sin can be reversed and so that we can find peace within, peace with each other, peace with God, purpose in this life, and that he wants it so badly that there's literally nothing that he won't do except force us to have it. Now, in the Old Testament, if you disobeyed, a lot of times you died. There's a commandment in these 10 commandments, and I'm not going to read them all. They're the King James. You can read them if you want to. There's a commandment in there that says that you should remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, right? That's Sunday for us, even though it wasn't Sunday for them. That you should remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. No work was supposed to be done on the Sabbath. And God was so serious about it that in Deuteronomy, he talks about it and says that if you worked on the Sabbath, if you did something on the Sabbath besides rested, that you were going to be killed, that they would throw rocks at you till you were dead. So it wasn't like, you messed up and it was pretty hardcore. I mean, these commandments, it was like you do them or you die. Now, we live in an era of grace, which can make us lazy, complacent, and really disrespectful, because we find ourselves relying so much on God's grace that we lose our place, and in turn, God loses his place in our life, and we find ourselves playing games. So God describes himself as a jealous God, that he's jealous in that he wants a relationship with us so that things can be the way that they were intended to be. That he can reverse the effects of sin, at least in your life, and in some ways within the part of the world that you are involved in or control. So are there any other gods in your life before him? Is there anything in your life that would be considered an idol that's taken God's rightful place? Good things can become bad things when they take the place of the main thing. And this gets so personal to us. If you're old, like me, or some of you who are older, we get defensive. Oh man, we get defensive. Well, you can't tell me that I lived wrong all these years and I did the best I could and I had all these things. We make excuses. We get prickly. If you're young, it's like, oh, you don't understand. I've got to achieve. I have to accomplish. I want this. I want that. Surely God knows. We make excuses. We get prickly. We get defensive. But if God's not number one in our life, there's a reason. And I want to share the reason with you. And it's not complicated, but it's profound. If God is not number one in your life, reflected in the way you spend your time, what you think about, and how you invest your resources, if God is not number one in your life, it's because you don't want him to be. Because what we want has this magical way of happening. It's because we don't want him to be. And the reason we don't really want him to be, if we're really being honest with each other, is because we just don't trust him. So that brings up another question, doesn't it? Is God really trustworthy? And if he is, and I really want him to be in charge, then what is that going to mean for my life? And that's kind of a scary place to be. But I would suggest to you that that pretty well defines a life of faith. We're going to pray in just a minute, and we're going to sing a few songs. And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to take you back to this passage. We're going to take a look at this idea from King David's perspective, and I'm going to leave you with an acronym for fall that I hope will help you begin this season in a brand new way. I've been praying for you, as I mentioned, all week, asking the Lord what it is that I should share with you this week, and had a little extra time to to study, and I like to hike when I go to Arkansas and spend a little time each day walking on some trails. It's a time where I create a little margin, be able to listen to some sermons and be able to just spend a little time just sort of focusing on life. And what I want to do is I just want to share with you that as I'm teaching this to you, as we're walking through this super simple message based on just one little verse in Scripture, this is not something that I've accomplished, that I've arrived at, and I'm just waiting for you to catch up and just tapping my foot impatiently because you're all such, immature Christians, and if you would just catch up to me and our pastoral staff, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm frustrated. As a matter of fact, after the first service, Joy told me to chill out a little bit. She said, hey, you got to dial it down just a little bit because I just get emotional about this because I'm frustrated with myself. I'm frustrated with life. I'm frustrated with us, with our culture. I'm frustrated with the church. Our lack of intentionality, our lack of urgency, our complacency, our being anesthetized by anything that distracts us that's shiny or different in life. And I know that we're going to miss our purpose, that we're going to die with regret, and we're going to end up leaving a world behind us that's a much bleaker place if we don't wake up and we don't do something about it. And so it really motivates me, and I hope it motivates you as well. And it's a weird choice for a holiday weekend. And Joy and I were talking on our way to church, and I said, it'd be a lot easier if I just didn't care, right? I could just come and just drop the message and go, hey, take it or leave it. But I care so much, and I want to get this so badly that I feel it deeply. King David was a ponderer. He's like my younger son, Nathan, in some ways. I think he thought deep thoughts. I think he walked through processes that scared him as he examined the meaning of life and looked at whether or not God was trustworthy. I think a lot of the writings that King David contributed in Psalms particularly aren't just musings that he sat down one morning over coffee with an open Bible and just wrote down out of inspiration. I think they were conclusions that he formed after seasons of suffering and thinking and praying and saying, this is who God is and this is what life is about. But he wasn't scared to walk right up to the corner, to the edge of the abyss and look over the other side and face the questions in life that so many of us won't face. I heard recently that evangelical Christians are the only people who don't seem to have any questions, because we think we have all the answers. We're trained from a young age to have trite, superficial answers where we slap Bible verses on real life and walk away never really examining or addressing things like the reason that we're here. King David in Psalm 16 came to a conclusion in his life that he shared with us. He said, those who run after other gods, who have anything in their life that takes God's rightful place, will suffer more and more. That there's a restlessness in our soul that may not be seen externally in the stuff we possess, the positions we have, the popularity we enjoy. But there's a restlessness of the soul that gets worse and worse. And it erodes here and here and in our closest relationships here. And some of you and some of us have lived with a restlessness, telling ourselves everything is okay or this is just the way life is. When in reality, the conclusion, the solution is simple, but just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. When we go to spend time with the kids, we have 3 goals, Joy and I do. One of them is to add value. One of them is to be useful. And one of them is to encourage, because we want our kids to want to see us coming. We want to make sure that we're friends with them now that they don't have to be friends with us. And so those are the goals. And I always look for a window when I'm with them. My 2 boys, my daughters-in-law, love talking with them. We get chances from time to time. The boys and I, we make intentional time where we hang out in my oldest son, Richard's garage. It's his man cave. He's got a 7-foot bar pool table in there that we play on. He's got an 8-foot stuffed bull shark hanging from the ceiling, a dartboard. It's a man cave. He'll open the garage door. He's got a screen across the garage. It's not really nice or lavish. It's just where we hang out and we spend time. And so of the 9 days that we spent time there was one day where we really were able to go deep And that's about the way it is with kids, isn't it? You hang out, you talk, we have a good relationship, but I pray for the one time. God, give me one conversation, give me one moment where there's a thin place, where heaven and earth, where they collide. You know what I'm talking about? Where you can just sort of step into something that's just so important, but God has to sort of organize the moment. And both my kids are going through big moments in life. Younger son, Nathan, is getting married in October, in a month. And that's a big deal. And we love his fiance. I told her this last trip, I said, thank you for saying yes to Nathan. I'm really excited to have you in our family. And you can straighten this boy out. I'm so excited Leah's going to be part of our family. But he's getting married, so he's thinking deep thoughts, right? I mean, that's what you do when you get married. You think about a commitment for life. You think about what it means to be a man, how you want your family to operate, and what's important to you. Older son, Richard, just had a baby. He just sold a commercial building where he did really, really well. He's already having a midlife crisis at 30. Now, I hope it's a third life crisis. I hope it's not midlife. But we're sitting there, and he said, what's the meaning of life? Now, this came after him thanking Joy and I, or me, for spending a lot of time with Emery. And I said, listen, it's a privilege for me to be able to help her become the best person that she can possibly be in her life. That's what I want to do. I want to help her. I want to help you help her become an amazing woman. And Roker, now an amazing man. And I don't care what she does for a living. I don't care how popular she is. I don't care what she owns when she's 50 or 75. I care about her heart. I care about the kind of person she is. And so, what's the meaning of life? Now, that's a big question. Now, I got one son who's a little bit more of a philosopher, a poet, Nathan, where he doesn't mind thinking the deep thoughts. I have Richard, my older son, who's very analytical, very business-oriented. He wants things to add up. He wants straight lines. He wants answers and conclusions. So when we talk, I have to referee because they're very different, right? I don't know where they got their personalities, but very different. So we're talking. And Nathan says, so let me just make sure I get this straight. The point of life is to be born into a world where you begin to die. That's a bleak way to start the conversation off, bud. But here we go. Life is a sexually transmitted terminal disease. The moment you're born, you begin to die. He didn't say that. That's the way I'm phrasing it. I'm 55. I'm not going to get in any better shape. I'm not going to get any better looking. I'm not going to get any taller. I'm not going to get any smarter. Things are going to be downhill from this point on. My goal in life is to push back the walker as long as I can, because that's life. Now, what's the point? So we're born, and as we're born, we begin to die. And so Nathan says, so this is the point, right? We try to find peace with God. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, then we do our very best to sort of help, nudge other people to find peace with God. And I'm like, yes. And he says, then we make little people, like Richard, just made little person, Eden, I guess, well, they made it together. You know what I mean, right? You know how it happens. How'd I get there? I have no idea. So you make a little person and you do your very best to help them find peace with God. So when we leave this life behind and all of this doesn't matter anymore, the world's a better place and people are able to find peace with God. And I said, son, you nailed the meaning of life. But when we walk right up to the abyss, when we walk right up to the edge of all of the questions that we really don't have concrete answers for, we don't come as a person with no foredrawn conclusions or assumptions. We come as people who know that there is a God, that he is loving, that he does have a purpose for us, and there is a plan. So we ask the question, not is there a purpose or is there a plan, but what is the purpose? What is the plan? And how do I win at life God's way? And it starts in Exodus, reinforced by Jesus. You're to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love the neighbor or your neighbor as yourself. King David, those who run after anything else in life are going to find themselves progressively suffering more and more in their minds, in their hearts, and in their closest relationships. So what's the solution? The solution is to order your priorities the way that God suggests and commands so that the restlessness goes away, so that we have peace with God, with others, and we can help the next generation do the same. So what's that look like? We have chairs in our life. You probably have more than 3. I know I do. I think I have 18. It gets confusing. Who sits in the number 1 chair? So I would ask you. You're a Christian, most of you. So what's most important in your life? You would say God is. And I'd be like, all right, God's right here. What's next? What's most important in your life? You'd say, probably family's most important. And I'd go, right on. Family's right here. Then I'd say, well, what's third? What's most important? Well, my career, third, right here. Well, what's next? Well, my hobbies, right here, right? Fourth. I hope we would say that. What's fifth? I mean, we have, probably 12, 13, 14 different chairs. And we would say that those are our priorities, but how do we live? The ways that you can order your life intentionally are your calendar, your checkbook, and you can begin to focus your thoughts. So what does it look like for God to be first? Most people don't put God first. Some people put family first. Good things can become bad things if they take God's place. Because a marriage is never stronger than when both people have God first in their life. Never stronger. A family never tighter, or at least never has more of a chance than when mom and dad, or mom or dad, have their hearts firmly grounded with God as number one. But sometimes we take family and we put them in God's place, and we make all kinds of excuses. Some people put their kids first, even over their spouse, and spend so much time with their kids that they don't even know who their spouse is. And then after the kids leave home, they look at each other and go, hey, stranger, who are you? Find you don't even like each other. And a lot of people split up, and it happens. I wish it didn't. Sometimes we create kids and create a life for kids where there's no chance for them to put God first in their life. Because not only do they not see it in us, but we don't even allow it through the schedule. I read a recent study that said 77% of kids from 5th grade through high school are sleep deprived. Psychologists tell us that the last 2 generations that have become adults have been kept so busy by their parents as they were kids and teenagers, running from one event to the next, never being allowed to rest, that they're filled with anxiety because the way that they define success in their life is by how tired they are and how busy they are. In some cases, we even take our families and we have the intentions of doing the right things, but we put them here instead of where they ought to be, which, by the way, is second if you have a family. But many times our family is not even second because our career is so important that we make all kinds of sacrifices. And if we're really being honest, this is really this, and our family hopefully is this, and then God may be this, but likely past the hobbies and past the anxiety and past the addictions and maybe down here in number 6 or number 7. But yet we say we're faithful Christians, but we have a restlessness in our soul. The people close to us see the inconsistency in the world around us. Why would I want that in my life? And this career thing, man, is it a trap? Because it's where we make the most excuses. Well, I have to spend too much time. Well, I can't spend any money. Well, of course I have to. I have to achieve the next promotion, the next event, the next benchmark. And do you know the reality is no matter how much you succeed, no matter how much you achieve, when you die in 2 weeks, someone's going to take your place or buy your company, and they're not going to remember who you are. Your kids will spend your money. They'll tell stories about you a couple times a year. 10 years later, it'll be one story, and then after that, you'll just be grandpa or grandma. They'll love you, but you're not nearly as important as you think you are. And the accomplishments, well, yeah, they mean something, but man, it's scary with how we let them slide where they have no business being. Let me tell you about one of the greatest men that I've known. His name is Dave. One of the busiest men I've known. But he had priorities in his life. He made church a priority because he believed that he needed to be a part of a body of believers to grow. He served. He was a creative arts director, volunteer, worked with our worship team and organized worship services. And Dave had a big life. It's been 20 years, so I can probably just say it now. The statute of limitations on a story is over. He worked for Boeing, and he was one of the highest level executives. He traveled the world, almost always arranged to be able to be back to church on the weekends, even though that's impossible for some of the time. And he had a philosophy or a perspective in life that was just unusual. And I asked Dave one day, I said, listen, you're busy. Hundreds of people look to you. He was in the middle of a massive corporate restructuring with Boeing that not only was he doing, but he was taking me through so that I could help understand how corporations work and what their strategies were to try to help me translate that to church. One time he picked me up from the airport, and when we went to baggage claim, he grabbed my suitcase. He was at least 10 years older than me, and I was in better shape than him. I was offended at first. I'm like, what are you doing? Grabbing my suitcase. He said, listen, Rick. He said, I get served by people all week long, everywhere I go. It is so important for me to remember that I am here as a servant. Allow me, please, let me carry your suitcase. Dave, what is your secret? He said, it's very simple. God allowed me to be in the position where I am. And the way I got there was this way. God was first, my family was second, and my career was third. God allowed me to get where I am. And I'm going to continue to live my life and execute my career this way. And God will either keep me here, living my life this way, or I shouldn't be here because it's not what's most important. And in my mind, that was a great man. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. There are probably areas in your life or things that you've thought about already where you're getting a little bit defensive and you're resisting and you're getting a little bit prickly and you wish I'd stop talking. But it's the points that you resist the most that reveal the most about you. And the finger you have pointed at me very well may be a finger that's your own, pointing back at you. Now, I'm not mad at you. I'm not frustrated with you. I'm walking alongside you, saying, could perhaps this be the season where we together put God where he needs to be and live a different way, trusting him and taking him at his word so that we can experience the peace that we may have never had, the purpose that God has intended for us to see his plan as we begin to live our life a different way. I want to leave an acronym with you. It's an acronym for fall. You guys know I love acronyms. F-A-L-L. It is the fall. Fall. Joy yesterday, she said, it's the fall. I need to decorate for Thanksgiving. I thought, what? No. This is what I said to her. Joy, we don't have that many Thanksgivings left. You can't decorate for Thanksgiving. Let's take all the time we need to get there. When it comes, let's decorate. Don't rush Thanksgiving. Man, you ladies, I'm telling you, as soon as the pumpkin spice latte comes out, you are decorating for Thanksgiving, if not Halloween. I'm not being judgmental, I'm just saying. So you got an acronym coming. It's fall. Here it is. My challenge I'm going to leave with you. Number one, forget yesterday. Because if you're like me, you've blown it. And if you dwell in the past, you can put that in God's rightful place. And you can obsess, and your anxiety can become an idol or a god in your life. Now, ask for forgiveness for the past. Forgive the people who you need to in your past. Move on from the past, but forget it. It's yesterday. It's gone. We're beginning anew, again. Number two, ask God to work. This right here is not a natural relationship. When I choose to take myself out of God's chair and to put myself where I belong, it is not a normal thing for a person to do. It's supernatural. It's a work of the Holy Spirit in the life of a believer who gives you the courage and the desire to reorder and rearrange and live a different way. But you ask God for help and say, I want to live for you. I do not want to live my way anymore. And we got to come straight face to face with questions. Do I trust God? Because if you don't trust him, you're never going to do this. But I trust you, God. I trust what you have is better than what I have, even though I don't know what it is. So I'm going to do it. And then you do. Leave some margin in your life. Now, I almost left this out because I know you're not going to do it. This is one of the things I shared with Richard and Nathan. It's one of the things I shared with Richard about raising kids. Like, you want to make sure that they don't become men and women of God, crowd God out of their life. Overschedule, keep them busy, make them distracted, help them achieve, and you'll squeeze God entirely out of their life. And they'll grow up thinking they were part of a Christian family, but in reality, like so many other young adults today, deconstructing their faith because they never experienced a faith that was strong enough to not need to deconstruct. And it's our fault. King David did not write out of a hectic and overscheduled life. He wrote out of the margin where he allowed the RPMs in life to settle to the point where he could be alone, where he could meet with God, where he could experience the uncomfortable thoughts of not having a cell phone in front of him and conversation going on and being heading to something and late for something else. To schedule in a little bit of margin. Seems counterintuitive, but do it and see what happens. And then really this is a summary, this L, we have the F, we have the A, we have the L, and then the last L is just simply live intentionally. You make a decision and you do it. Discipline is a game. You choose what you want most more than what you want right now. And this is not easy. And most of you, if statistics and percentages hold, are going to walk away and forget about this message. But there's a few of you, and I hope more than a few, who decide that now is the time. I'm sick of it. I'm done with it. Now is the time. I'm going to make some choices and things are going to be different. We think relationships should be easy. Sometimes my marriages have so much trouble because we think they don't require any work. I should just be hanging out with the person I love and it should be easy. And you know, it's fun, but it's not always easy. It takes a little bit of work. Well, we treat the Lord the same way. Well, it's a relationship. It should be fun. It should be easy. We're going counterculture. The Apostle Paul, Romans 12, the world has a current pulling us away from God. You've got to do something. We've got to organize. We have to be intentional. We have to, because if not, you know what happens. The world's plan for you takes over and off we go. So where is it and what is it that you may have allowed to creep in? I probably should say that you're not doing me a favor by ordering your life. Now, ultimately, I want this for you more than anything. I want it for myself. But properly ordering your life is the biggest favor you can do for yourself. And I promise you it's the best thing that you can do for your kids or your grandkids. And I promise you that it is the only way that you are going to make today and each day until you are not here anymore count. And that you can get to the end of your life and look back and die without regret. Peace with God, peace with others, teaching and encouraging the next generation to be at peace and have peace so that we can move on, leave this world behind, having left a more peaceful and better place. And that peace comes through a person, Jesus Christ. So do you have a thing? Has God pointed out anything in your life? Is he nudging you? Okay, here it is. The deciding moment, rubber hitting the road. You're out of here in about 6 minutes. What are you going to do about it? Now, today. Father, thank you for my friends, and I pray that as we close this time together, that we would not waste the time that we have spent so far. That when we've thought about our lives and thought about sometimes the tangled spider web of circumstances and decisions and just how difficult things can become, how confusing. It feels like if we're handing you our life, we're handing you a jumbled mess. But you've shown us time and time again, through all of these stories that we've talked about over the last 4 months in the Old Testament, all of the stories we study in the New, that it's what you love to do. That you take a jumbled mess, crooked lines, that when we trust you with all of our heart, not leaning on our own understanding, in all of our ways, acknowledging you and putting you first, that you will direct our path. I want that for myself, for my friends, Father. This fall, we're going to live differently for your glory with your strength. We need your help. In Jesus' name, amen.